We are continuing our coverage here in Vancouver at the VRIC, and with me now is a very familiar face to our show, Frank Holmes of US Global Investors. Frank will also be on my Ultimate Gold panel tomorrow morning. I'm so excited for that.
Same here.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. But let's give people who unfortunately can't be here today a sneak peek of what we're going to be talk about tomorrow. One of the main topics will be China and how China is playing a major role here in the gold industry. Right. Tell us about what you're seeing out of China.
This morning when I spoke, I went back to previous times, 7 years ago, you recall, Gordon Chang had a debate, anti-China, I'm pro-China.
I was there. I was there for that.
I showed my presentation this morning that the Chinese market is more than doubled what the Canadian market has done, the banks, etc. And in fact, over this time period of 7 years, the Canadian junior mining space is up 36%. So don't bet against China. And then two, I saw in 2015, I talked the story with the significance of gold moving from North America to Switzerland, being refined and going to China. And that China went from a price maker to a price taker to price maker. And no one believed it. Now you see China continues to be this robust consumer of gold. And so I was trying to educate people, there's these big trends, they just don't happen right away.
And that's an interesting point because, and something I spoke about with Peter Schiff is that the Perth Mint, for example, and I know it's not China, it's Australia, but had record gold sales. But we didn't see this from the US Mint this year. So the buying is coming from elsewhere.
It is. And the 60% of gold demand, as you know, is love. It's the GDP, and the best way to look at it is China and India. And Pierre Lassonde, speaking of the Denver Gold Show, he had a great chart showing that 30 years ago, China and India were 10% of all gold consumption. Today, they're 53%.
That's crazy.
So now, you remember our airline's jet ETF when I launched it in New York, and you were there?
Yes.
Well, guess what? The Chinese now have a bigger middle class in America, and they're dominating travel. So it's highly correlated to gold consumption and travel.
But we also I spoke with Pierre Lassonde, and he also sees a trend of China buying more and more silver, which we don't talk about a lot. But do you feel the younger generation in China is stockpiling silver? Are you seeing that in your research?
No, I've not seen that as of yet. But I do see that this is year of the rat. And in the Zurich airport was all this stuff about the Chinese New Year and gold chocolates, shapes of rats, and you can buy gold rats. So it's amazing to see Zurich.
Have you heard anything about this? When Max Kaiser was on, he was saying that China is secretly accumulating tons of gold because they plan to launch a crypto backed by gold. Have you heard anything of the sort?
I've not heard that, but they know so well that they want to become a global trading currency, to have the power of the Japanese yen, the British pound, and especially the euro. They're going to have, for their credibility because of their communist government background, gold as trust. And so they continue to buy gold to back, because the renminbi, they want to become the currency of trade to take on America.
Now that there seems to be peace in the trade deal with the US, do you feel that this will continue to benefit China more?
It'll benefit China and it's going to benefit America. Since this trade war started, the U.S. Purchasing Manufacturers Index has basically fallen dramatically. And that's not a good thing if you're a big Trump fan. That's got to turn higher because it's highly correlated to not only manufacturing that drives it, but commodity demand. Germany is still started coming out of that trough, but collectively the EU started all that money printing in the summer when gold ran up. So we do have a global PMIs have turned positive. China's got good still economic numbers. So I remain really positive. 2020 is going to be an outstanding year. It's a leap year. It's a year of the rat. And if you're not long, you'll be wrong.
Speaking about central banks and international buying of gold, in the past 30 years, we haven't seen this type of buying from central banks where they've turned from net sellers of gold after the Nixon era to net buyers today. So do you think that we could possibly be headed to the next gold standard?
No, far from it. This just doesn't have, I think it's very important to recognize they're going to leverage that gold. So if you want to be able to have paper money, it's like banking reserves. You can leverage your equity base sixfold or eightfold. So if you want to have a leveraged economy, then you have to have gold to support it.
Do you feel that these countries that are buying gold, like Russia, like India, like Poland, do you think that they're preparing for some sort of economic crisis?
No. I think they're trying to make their currency more valuable because people want to trust. Like, how could you trust renminbi currency? It's a brand new currency, and Russia went bankrupt in '98. So it's not too long ago they defaulted on their sovereign bonds. So the only way to support that is to have gold behind it.
Tomorrow on the panel, I'm going to ask all you gentlemen that gold has had an incredible streak, but the mining stocks have not responded yet. And a lot of the emails I get and investors I speak to here on the floor are frustrated by that. But you say everything is cyclical. So talk us through a little bit about the cycles that you're...
What's most important for a true gold equity cycle is you need to have gold bullion rising, but you have to have the generalists, not the gold mutual funds buying the gold stocks, but the generalists, big pension fund groups, they believe in it. But the track record of so many of these mining companies is deplorable. They're known as the capital destroyers. They waste money. They'd rather go buy Google. So that's the big trade-off. The same thing with the airlines industry. Only in the past 5 years has the airline industry actually started to give shareholders a dividend and dividend growth.
But are the generalists there yet, Frank?
Oh no, and when they come, we're going to get a huge, huge run. So I'm a big believer that's going to happen because I've talked to CEOs, they're much more sensitive, they're much more cognizant that they have to be able to show revenue per share growth, not just top line growth. They have to be able to show cash flow growth, not just a big number, but per share.
But you were saying the people that are in the know are actually at the right place at the right time. They're there now. We're seeing big mining names starting assets again right now.
Well, you just look at Ross Beatty. And you look at Grand Columbia, that was a disaster. And Refocus management, no research analysts, and they're focused on revenue per share growth, cash flow per share growth, and cash piling in the bank. Guess what happened? All of a sudden they go from trading a couple thousand shares a day to hundreds of thousands of shares a day because they've gone from owing 45 million, now they have 83 million in the bank. So that shows up on a per share basis. Quant funds, they buy those names.
And we're seeing, names like Bridgewater, Ray Dalio's Bridgewater, coming out with, pretty bullish forecasts for gold, saying, they wouldn't be surprised to see gold hit $2,000 this year. And I know you've come out with forecasts much higher than that. But in September, you were saying, hey, you wouldn't be surprised if gold hit 20 or 10,000 or higher, right?
And why not? And not because you have a crisis, but because you have runaway monetary policy abuse. They will not, the EU socialists will not streamline. When I was in Switzerland last week, and I'm talking to senior people, they're so happy about Brexit. You know why? Because it takes the EU attack off of just Switzerland, and now they get the share in it, and they hope that once again London will become a financial center like it was prior to the EU.
I'm happy that they're talking about Brexit and not Megxit. but thank you so much, Frank. And I just want to say, you are so kind, U.S. global investors, not one, but two.
Because you look so beautiful. You're going to be a super mummy with a pair of twins?
Pair of twins. So gold nugget number one. And gold. Who am I going to give the one, though, to? They're going to fight.
The first one that comes out.
Thank you so much, Frank. And we'll see you on the panel.
Great.
Tomorrow morning. And thank you for watching. We'll have much more for you on Kitco.com.
And doesn't she look beautiful? Beautiful mummy.